Hi, welcome to Ask the Manager. We're doing it a little differently today. We're at the municipal building, and we have a main topic, so we have real special guests today. We have Patrick Pitney, who is now the designated chair of all the building committees. You took over for Ted Coughlin and Henry Fitzgerald, where they were always, you just can't get away now.
I cannot now.
No. So, but you've been the chair of several building committees now.
This is my second one. I did the police station, which was originally the municipal campus facility. And that was cut back to just the police station due to COVID. Okay. And then I'm here for the DPW in town, or the Municipal Facilities Optimization Committee.
I know. And you have been chair of the Finance Committee.
Yes, I have.
And you gave us quite a few years on that awesome committee.
9 years, yeah.
And what else have you been involved with?
I've been town meeting member. I came to Shrewsbury in 1992. I was a 28-year-old kid who didn't know anything about town politics. Grew up in Worcester, so that was plain e-government. So it was always just a city manager with a council. So when I came to town, started learning about the operations of how town meeting actually worked, because we never learned it in civics or anything like that, and became very interested. So I ran for town meeting. I was elected out of Precinct 5 with 3 votes at that time, and it's just taken its course since then.
And so what brought you to Shrewsbury from Worcester?
At the time, my wife and I were married. We were married a couple of years. We were ready to buy a house. It was a good time. 1992 was a wonderful time to buy a house in Shrewsbury. And we got lucky. We found a great place on Floral Street, and we've been there ever since.
Any regrets?
None.
None, huh?
No, not a one. In fact, my daughter just bought in town as well.
Did she?
Yes, she did.
Oh, you have adults now.
Yes, yes.
Whoa. And we also have the Assistant Town Manager, Keith Baldinger, with us. And Keith, you are the Assistant Town Manager in charge of operations, but that means many projects. How do you keep them straight?
It's all up here. It's really. We have a great team in our office that helps me keep all that stuff straight.
Good.
Working with other departments, of course, too. So.
In our first time on Ask the Manager, we have Tim McInerney, who is our new DPW director, and you came to us from Northborough.
Yes, that was my recent position as a town administrator in Northborough.
And before that, you were in
City of Worcester.
City of Worcester.
Yeah, I was the inspectional services director for Ed Augustus. That was a great experience. It was an interim position, but before that, my longest tenure was in Grafton in 2008 until 2020.
And that's where you met Kevin?
I met Kevin, and I lured him away from New Jersey to come to Massachusetts.
So never burn your bridges, because you never know where you'll meet.
Well, that's what I'm grateful for today.
So welcome to Shrewsbury. How has it been since you've arrived?
It's great. The professionalism that this staff has, both my staff and up the chain to Kevin and to Keith and to David, it's just, even the board's involvement and their thoughtfulness and projects, budget, staff selection, if you will, because I know they're on some committees to select staff. It just seems like has an identity, has a professional level that has people that are concerned about the community and how we provide service, and they're involved in a positive way.
Now you're in for it.
Yeah.
And the DPW project, as I call it, is really the Municipal Facilities Optimization Committee, which you said.
Yes.
Did you give it that name?
I did not.
Okay. Let's just get started with the project. Kevin, why don't you tell us what the project really is about?
Sure. So there's 2 key components of the project. The renovation and expansion of facilities at South Street, which is the core front-end operations for DPW. It's where highway workers, parks and cemetery workers, water and sewer workers are duty stationed. It's where we store millions of dollars worth of equipment. It's where we service the entire fleet from across all departments. It's where we fuel vehicles, store salt, all those things. Many folks are familiar with it because DPW and that facility impacts every resident every day. And the optimization part of the project is we originally looked at the town hall facility, as Mr. Pitney said, when we were looking at the whole municipal campus. And then COVID happened, and the select board said, we got to really scale this project back and just focus on the police department, because that was the prioritized project. But a major component of that project was the expansion of the town hall that we were looking at. Almost $20 million in 2019, 2020 dollars was the scope of work that we were looking at there. So optimizing the work that needs to be done at South Street provides us with an opportunity to not have to expand the town hall, but gain space within it. So really the town hall component is the tail on the dog, so to speak. It's less than 10% of the overall project cost. So major investment in South Street, some renovation and life safety type improvements here at the town hall. Last time this building was touched was over 27 years ago. So it's time to make some improvements.
Now, when you talk about the work that needs to be done in town hall, the group of DPW employees here will move to South Street.
That's correct.
And how will you stay connected to Tim?
Well, that's a great question. And I think historically in the community, the thought always had, there was a line of thought that because everything is a town hall, that everything works so well. And I think there is a component to that. But I think what we're losing right now, and Tim can probably speak to better, is his disconnection from his staff.
Right.
I am committed to, Tim is committed to, his senior leadership team, which sits in this town hall, is committed to that good professional communication and management and talking to each other. And that's a small component compared to what I think we're missing from Tim's disconnection to his staff at South Street. So maybe he could talk about that a little bit.
Tim, why don't you tell us how you feel about it?
Well, it's more of an art than a science, I can tell you that. But I think of Kevin's leadership here, and he gets to model behavior every day, and we all, as his staff, get to see that. I think the staff on South Street, once we're all there, communication effectiveness, community service, delivery of services to the community from one location is critical. But the art thing I mentioned is I like to walk around. I like to see what's happening. I like to see the equipment. It's over 200 pieces of insured equipment over millions of dollars that need to be, looked after. Many eyes need to take care of that stuff. Inventory management, direct feedback to staff when things are going well and when things could go wrong. We want to be there to protect their safety. So the safety components, but it's going to take many eyes. And if there's things that we can prevent from being in one place, that's optimization in my mind. I mean, you wouldn't have, the Red Sox are spring training opening day, they're all at Fenway Park. You don't have, the third base coach at Gillette Stadium. We need to be in one place to do all the things I just mentioned. I won't be redundant with them, but I think modeling that behavior, setting that expectation, and giving instantaneous feedback when things are going right or when things might go off track, and protecting the town so it does not go off track.
So, Pat, you were involved, of course, when we were discussing what we wanted to do in the municipal building when we were working with the police station.
Yes.
So now that DPW is going to move to South Street, how does that relate from your perspective?
Well, I think it's actually a really good move. To Tim's point, I think to have the division managers and the department heads on site with their people is absolutely critical from an efficiency and work-related standpoint. I think they can communicate much better. There's not that distance. They get to know each other a lot better, which is wonderful. From a town hall perspective, what it does is it shrinks the scope of what we're trying to do significantly here, where it's more of a renovation project where we're replacing some critical systems that we're going to need, the HVAC, some of the ADA compliance issues, some of the bathroom upgrades, things like that. But it brings the scale of the project from 20 million, Kevin, I think originally is what we had, and who knows what that would be in today's dollars, down to 4 million, 4.4 million.
That's correct.
So I think, from an efficiency standpoint and truly an optimization standpoint, this is the best direction for the town. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
So Keith, what's the urgency of getting the work done in Town Hall?
So we have multiple systems, as Pat mentioned, that are old, right? Like we have an HVAC system that's 27 years old. It hasn't been touched since 1997 when this addition was done on the building and shortly thereafter. So it's not very efficient. It's natural gas. So that would be that's the number one piece. That's probably the most the largest cost for the building is the HVAC system. And then the front of this building, original for the most part, 1966, has no sprinkler system in it. So we would install a sprinkler system there. The fire alarm system is circa 1997.
Before you go any further, you said no sprinkler system in the front of Town Hall.
Correct.
That means that the town manager's office, that means that all of the town records, which are
Correct.
in the hall,
in the safe. Yep.
all of that is technically vulnerable
Correct.
as it stands.
That's right.
And we need to come from 1966 standards to
Today.
2025.
That's right.
And there's been a lot of changes since then.
Sure.
But so it's important, also for the safety of if people are occupying the building and there were to be a fire.
And it's all work that at some point is going to come across our desk because there'll be a catastrophic failure and we'll have to replace it. So we're trying to get ahead of that and get it done. I mean, we've done such a good job maintaining this building that we've extended the life longer than it should have been extended. And we're just at the point where we shouldn't do that anymore.
So with DPW moving out, it's the perfect opportunity to go to town. There's less people that will be disrupted as the
Right.
work takes place.
Right. As the South Street building is completed and the 30-odd staff that are on the second floor in DPW are here now, they can move to South Street. That allows us some swing space to move people around this building as areas are renovated or improved. I mean, there'll definitely be, at some point in this project, there'll be some impact on service for sure, because there are some things that we can't do with people in the building, like mitigate the asbestos and that
Right.
sort of thing. But having that space at South Street, overall helps us, but just for the project alone, it really lowers our costs to move people around and give them some other place to work while we're upgrading this building.
So what does it mean for when upstairs is complete? Who would occupy upstairs?
We haven't determined final space occupancy, but the biggest opportunity that it provides is for the school administration department to operate from a single location. Now they have staff spread across 3 different buildings. Most of them are here for central administration, some at Parker Road and some at the new Beale School to just accommodate their staff. And, kind of bulk numbers, the school department will occupy a space the size of the second floor. So once that final determination is made, we'll see where everyone fits. But that's really the biggest component of this. And if I would go there for the other spaces, we've cannibalized conference spaces over the past few years. The old selectmen's meeting room that we used to have regular public meetings in, even when we were building the Beale School project, we had regular public meetings in there and plenty of other meetings. And that's now office spaces. So again, a lot has happened since even 1977, let alone 1966, which was the last major 2 investment. So that's the optimization in the space that gets provided by moving the DPW folks down to South Street.
So there's no question that space is urgently needed here in this building for the work to get done.
Right. It is more of addressing an immediate need, which has been a chronic need, but it will be occupied essentially from day one.
And so who wants to talk to me about the timeline?
I can speak to that
Okay.
a little bit if you like. So,
Town meeting.
provided we get through town meeting, which is on April 14th, we have finance committee on the 10th, and then we have special town meeting on the 14th, and then it goes to election for the debt exclusion on May 6th. And provided that all is favorable, the project team, who hasn't stopped working, they're still working because we have funds appropriated from fall town meeting for design. They'll continue further forward into construction bidding and the procurement process, furthering the design along the way. And then we were looking at September, potentially October, shovels in the ground at South Street to start that project. And then it's about 24 months from that point on.
So you're hoping for a mild winter?
Yes, well, the interesting thing, so the part of this process, and part of having a construction manager at risk on already, right? They've already talked about the phasing and what things will be done at certain times, because we know that the winter is the busiest time for the South Street location, right? Because it's
Plowing.
24/7 pretty much. I mean, it's a 24/7 operation now, but winter is really where the big impact is. So they'll use this first winter for site work and foundations and steel, and then potentially by next winter or prior to next winter, they'll have completed the addition, and then they can start the renovation of the existing building and allows swing space for operations to work in that new part of the building. And then they'll button that up the following spring, and then there will be some crossover with town hall work maybe happening at the same time as.
So South Street would be done in 26 or 27?
27.
And Town Hall would be done also in 27?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep. So it's about 24 months. So fall of 27 would be completion of the whole project.
so Tim, how do you get your work done between now and 2027? Because that's 2 years away.
Well, the logistics, he makes it sound easy. Do you want to cover the outreach meeting, since I don't know when this will go live, but do you want to talk about
Sure.
the 2nd, which is tomorrow?
Yep.
5:30 to 7:30 at South Street.
Yep.
And you have the 9th, the 16th.
The 9th and the 23rd.
Yep.
Is there another one after that?
Yep, there's one on the 24th also. That's
And those can be found on the website?
Yep, we have it all on our webpage.
Where on the website?
So it's shrewsburyma.gov/MFOC. So
MFOC.
yep, and then there'll be also potentially today there'll be a banner on the front page of our website, so people can click right to it, so they don't have to search for it. Or you can go right to our DPW page, and that also has a button that gets us to the project page.
So there's a few ways to get to the dates.
Yes,
And if anybody has any questions, they can always call and ask for Keith.
that's right.
Or Tim.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, I mean, timing, logistics, that building, moving people around, keeping operations open it's going to be a challenge. I'm not saying it can't be done. It can be done, but it's going to be difficult. In terms of I shouldn't tell Kevin this, but I can work anywhere. You know what I mean? The people who work for me are professional, competent, talented, technical experts. I get the luxury of just directing them and following up and assuring we have great customer service. So I can do that anywhere. As long as I can be close to those people, the operations will be fine.
Good. And so how does the look at all of this at this point, Pat?
I think the committee we're very positive about the whole project. We really like the way the design and the phasing and the scope laid out. We really think it's the most efficient design possible for what the needs are, not only for now, but for in the future. Because as Tim said, we have millions of dollars worth of equipment that currently is not all being stored inside. This will alleviate this problem. It's going to give appropriate workspaces to the employees, which if anybody's been through those buildings, they do not have appropriate workspaces right now. The locker rooms are not good. The bathrooms are out of date. The break areas are almost uninhabitable. And that's just on the highway side. If you go over to the water and sewer division, that building's it's way beyond the end of its use.
Should need an X on the building, maybe?
It really does. It really does. So that will come down, and we will, build new for the water and sewer division. But in terms of space needs and employee needs, this is the plan that we're confident that will work and take us where we need to be.
So, Kevin, it appears for someone on the outside that we're always building, which we are. So, if I can think to, Coolidge School's renovation's probably coming around again. But when you look at that, you look at Floral Street School, you look at the middle school and the high school and Beale, there's always something, the fire station, the other fire station, there's always construction. How do you answer that for people that aren't really watching all the time to see what's going on?
Well, I'll start with a big number, 1.2 million, and that's how many square feet of space that we have as a town that we operate from when it comes to municipal facilities and school facilities. And I do understand that it feels like there's always something in motion, but the community is always in motion, and we're fortunate that we can space these projects out. So we've done a lot of work actually since the construction of the police station and the Beale School, to really think about how we separate projects to provide some space in between them. And what we've done is we've laid out a plan into the future really for the next 20 years or so, to find a path where we don't have back-to-back years where new debt is coming onto the books. I know we'll get into the financials of this project, but that's really the key part of this is mitigating taxpayer impacts. And I think that is being accomplished through this project, through this model. We haven't had new debt that's come on and impacted the property tax bills since fiscal year 24. So we'll have fiscal year 25, which we're currently in right now, which folks have already received their new tax bills in January. So that was a normal year. That was just operating cost increases. And, it was about a 3.9% increase year over year versus, the Beale project and the police station project. Those increases year over year were sometimes lower double digits. And we understand that's really challenging for people. So as we look at these projects going forward, this project will hit tax bills in, fiscal year 2027. So that was one important thing that the select board asked us to do, is find a way to space them out. Everyone should realize that we need to continue these investments. We have looked at them, in a number of ways of graphically representing data. It plays out really, buildings get touched about every 30 years. And that shouldn't be surprising because of how heavily utilized the buildings are and, the lifespan and expectancy of materials and systems within them. So just to be concise, we're trying to space projects out so there's not back-to-back year impacts on the tax bill. And,
The town has grown.
overrides as well. We would
Right.
space those things
Right,
out.
but the town has grown, and the population is here, and the daytime population is here. So these buildings are being maximized. Also, a lot of buildings are coming to the time when work needs to be done. So one way or another, you're going to renovate, and then you look to say, do we renovate or do we expand? How do we do this in the most cost-efficient way? I mean, those are always the discussions that come about. The other part to this is that it appears that Town Hall, for example, is well-maintained because it's always clean, it's always freshly painted, the simple things. But you still have to take care of the structure. So, 1970 what? What Town Hall was?
66.
66, okay. So I was a freshman in high school at the time. And, I can remember coming in this building and, from the old building at the center of town, coming in this building for meetings as a high school kid. And, times passed. So just as you have to take care of the structures in your home, you have to take care of your public buildings. So, and as one project comes off the books, so most recent projects coming off the books would be the fire station?
Fire stations are off the books now. The Sherwood renovation project, Oak renovation project is coming off.
Is coming off the books. So as projects come off the books, it's almost like an evolution where something else will come on, but you're not stockpiling. You're aware of it, and you pay attention to, not having more on the books than would be appropriate.
There's a hidden optimization, and I think I may have told this story at the special town meeting last year, but when I started in 2017, very common practice onboarding in any organization. I met with every department head. And I remember sitting down with Bob Tizesky, who is the water and sewer superintendent. He presented me with plans to replace the water and sewer garage at South Street. And I politely pushed them back across the table and said, I won't recommend a project like this, even though I'm just seeing it, until you have the opportunity to incorporate the highway garage into it as well. That building's only about 10 years older. Why are you going to replace that building and not take care of that? So some aspects of this project were originally presented in designed in 2015 and 2016, but we found a much better way to do it. I think it was about $18 million just to replace that garage with that scope of work at that time.
So that's 10 years.
Yeah.
It took 10 years for the high school, which now is not considered the new building, but it took 10 years for that project to come around because of trying to, of course, convince people that it was necessary and so on. So it took 10 years for that to happen. And now you're telling me it took 10 years for water and sewer and highway to come around. So even though it was just quietly in the back waiting their turn, basically, which happened with the fire station, which happened with the schools and the police station. It's like everybody's waiting, and the library, everybody's waiting for their turn. So I think that's important, because I think if you're not paying attention to meetings and discussions, you're saying, what the heck? Why are these people building? What are they, building crazy? No, you're doing your job. You're following it in a responsible way. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, you're looking at facilities that were built in the 60s and 70s at South Street, and really modest investments in them. This building was built in 1966 with the renovation in 1997 when I was a senior in high school. We can compare notes. But that's a lot longer time ago than I would like to admit, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not. It's been
Time
30
flies.
years, and it will be 30 years when the ribbon, proverbial ribbon is cut on this building and it's reopened after it's renovated,
Yeah.
and that's that traditional cycle that we've seen in the required investments in these major facilities.
So Pat, who's the architect?
The architect is HKT Architects, and they have been working diligently since they came on board in December, advancing the plans from out to the 60% level and really coming up with, working with Fontaine Brothers and our owner's project manager, Vertex. They really put in tons of time, hundreds of hours, to come up with the design project where it is at this point and reconcile all the numbers to where we are right now.
Okay, so let's go back. There's a couple of phrases. Construction manager at risk means?
Construction manager at risk is Chapter 149A of the Massachusetts General Laws, and it's a design process where you have to get approved by the state to construct under this model, where the town hires an owner's project, we hire an architect, and then we hire a construction manager at risk. And you go out and go through the whole vetting and design process, and you come up with a guaranteed maximum price for the project. That, when you come up with that GMP, when the job is bid, the project cannot go over that cost. It can come under, which traditionally in Shrewsbury, all of the projects we've done under 149A have come in at or under. I think the closest one to 100% was the police station, where we were about 99.3%, I believe, or 4%. So we've always come under this process. So we have a number now that we're confident in. And when assuming we get through town meeting and the finance committee and all of the things coming up in the vote on May 6th, and we go out to bid the project at the $42.4 million, that will be the guaranteed maximum price, and we will not go over that. And we will do everything, the committee and the whole project team will do everything they can to find more efficiencies and to come in under that number.
So the guaranteed maximum price gets locked in October,
When the
according
bidding
to your
goes out,
timeline.
yes.
So once that happens, now tell us why that's so important with today's economy.
Well, just the uncertainty that everyone experiences, whether they're going to the grocery store or the gas pumps or listening to the news. it locks the price in. And the at-risk part is really on the construction manager. They're the ones that are taking the risk to then build the project for
Scary
that
times.
cost.
Yeah. So tell us why not to pause the project.
Well, so if we pause the project, so for every year, every 12-month cycle, it's an estimate of 5% more cost because the cost of labor will never go down. Materials may stay even, or they could go up. So that's the typical, that's the number that we're using in today's world.
In today's world, even the materials are going up because
Correct.
everything else is.
Correct.
So that will too. So
Can we talk about the police station on that front real quick, though?
sure.
To interrupt you. So,
Sure.
as everyone knows, we opened the police station in the spring of 2022 and spring of 2023. Sorry. We opened it in March of 2023. Right. We started that construction in the spring of 2021. We have gone out and repriced that project, and it would be twice as expensive. So it was about 35 million, 37 million. It's estimated to be $60 million. So now, if we were to put it out in construction today. So 5% is what our cost estimators are telling us that they're using in their price escalation. But reality shows for the police station that
That's a ridiculous.
It
That's
is.
a ridiculous amount.
it is ridiculous.
So actually, David Fontaine had said at one of the meetings that it's better to get the subcontractors if you have a secured price. So even to get that and to lock in their prices for subcontractors, this is all an important thing to not pause.
Yeah, and I think another important thing to note right now with the construction matter at risk. So the number that we've reconciled now, they used over 60 contractors or 60 vendors to confirm those costs, right? So those are real numbers. Those aren't made up with a dartboard in an estimator's office, right? Like those are real contractors that did real bidding for this stage of the project.
And so once all of this gets hopefully approved, they lock in the prices for their benefit as well.
Correct.
Because it's just so, what would you call it, chaotic right now. So what does this mean to the regular taxpayer? What does this project, this building on South Street and renovating in the municipal building, what does that mean for the homeowner?
So if you look at how we're going to finance the project, it's about $38 million is we're going to request to borrow $38 million. When you look at that overall and the big chunks that we've talked about, 4.4 million of those dollars will be invested in the town hall. And $34 million will be invested at South Street. So the vast majority of the funds are going to the frontline workers at South Street, DPW, which impacts every resident every day, water, sewer, roadways, solid waste, all of those things. The cost associated with it is, there's some complexity in that as well. 22 million of the what we're going to borrow will be paid back through the general property tax. And because we structure our debt on a declining debt service basis, which means we pay less and less year over year, assuming we take on no other projects, the total cost impact for debt service for the average single family home for this project would be $177. But since we have other debt that's being retired that we've talked about, the net impact, the actual increase to the tax bill will only be 51. So we're getting a $38 million investment, and it's going to cost 51 additional dollars in comparison to your 2025 tax bill once we bring this project on board. The second component is a little over $16 million that are going to be repaid through utility rates. So water and sewer customers can expect, if you're an average user, that's for the average single family home that I talked about on the tax bill. For the average water and sewer user, it's going to be $20 a year. So if you're in the average price home and you use an average amount of water and sewer on an annual basis, it's going to be $71 is the price impact. And that's at those numbers that we've discussed, 42 million total project investment, which we've already have $2 million in place. We're going to use a little bit of free cash and money from the sale of the easement at Centec Boulevard. But really, in a nutshell, about $71 a year.
And you're saying all that, and people can decide if they believe that they should be committed to this project in that way. What have we left out? What information have we not given the public? Anything that you'd want to add? I'd like to ask you, when you go down to South Street and you pull in, right now it is very, very much a construction site in itself. So now when the plows and the trucks are going in and out, and now they've got to work on these trucks in the garage, do all of these trucks that you have fit in the garage to do work?
To do work like mechanical work or
Yes.
just for storage?
Mechanical work.
No, I only have 4 technicians, so I only can work on 4 at a time, if that's your
But
question. Sure.
size-wise, the trucks fit in the garage?
Yeah, not every piece. Not every piece. And even in the new building, we're trying to build for the future, but we don't have a crystal ball. So we're trying to do the best we can, and we're limited by a budget constraint. So we're trying to balance those two
Right.
things. So short answer is no, not everything down there fits in there now. Most of the items, of course, we want to extend the useful life of any particular piece, especially newer equipment. We want to keep that undercover at all times. So we'll protect those things as best we can.
So Pat, when Tim just mentioned about trying to extend the life, in planning with the building committee, did you look forward and try to anticipate 50 years out like we did with the police station?
Well, I think we always try and do that. And I think one of the key components of that, and Tim has mentioned it already, is we have millions of dollars worth of equipment out there. We make capital investments in equipment on a yearly basis. It's in the budget package every year. By doing this project now and being able to get every piece of equipment inside and stored for the winter, you're going to extend the lives of those machines naturally. That's going to create an efficiency all by itself. So over time, you're going to recoup a lot of the money that we're investing just by extending the lives of the machines that we have.
And this one thing that we haven't talked about, we've talked about in the past, is so fleet management is a division within the Department of Public Works that services equipment, vehicles, small equipment from across all departments that has it,
Right down to the lawnmower.
right down to the
I
one.
loved looking at the fleet management.
But one exception to that is the fire department, because we're so fortunate to have our operations manager, Joe Milos, who does all that work at the department. But what that means, and everyone is really grateful for the work that Joe does, but that means that we have a firefighter who's dedicated to equipment and vehicle maintenance primarily. Of course, in a major situation, Joe can deploy and suppress fires and do calls as well. But it's our goal to get that into the hands of the fleet management division and those technicians to be able to service fire equipment as well. So this is a step in that direction as well, to be able to service fire equipment in the long term. Right now we're relying on one human, Joe, and for fire, and then we have a system for managing the rest of the fleet for all other departments. We need to get the fire into the system and not be reliant on a person.
Because Joe's been a mechanic for the town fire department since he was in grammar school, I think. So sooner or later, he's going to retire too.
Right.
But so also the water, when we say sewer and water, you're talking about including the buildings in the facility over by Jamesbury. Well, I don't know what it's called over there now, but over at the end of Lake Quinsigamon, off of Main Street, right?
Well, so that's the treatment plant.
The treatment plant. So
That'll stay there.
it'll stay there, but that's included in the scope of, when we say DPW, that's
Part
included.
of the operation, yeah.
Yes. So when this project's done, how do you connect to the treatment plant?
We just hired someone from that facility to replace Dan Raleigh, so just like me to walk around and be in those locations from time to time. He still has to have connective tissue with those folks in terms of meeting with them, if not daily. They're having conversations daily. I know that.
And his name is Tim also?
Yeah, Tim Maroney. Yeah,
Tim Maroney.
There's no Irish lineage here at all. I will add one thing we didn't talk about. It's an important question that you raised. We don't talk about attraction and retention of employees. And you just look at that facility and just, it's not. It's given you its whole life.
Yeah.
That facility. And now, when we want to attract and retain the best workforce, having, just to go back to this building, you look at this building from the road, and it has curb appeal.
Yeah.
You can say, "Wow, that's nice. I can see myself working there. It's a nice building. It's attractive." You don't have that same thing on
Not on South Street.
And while we don't want to build anything over elaborate, I think there's a piece. I don't know if it's 20% of someone's being to say, I want to work in a place that has amenities that look nice, that I feel safe in. Safety for the men and women who work down there is tantamount, but just the look of it, I think, is going to attract and retain employees.
Which also, go ahead.
So the other thing that we will be providing for is enhanced recycling and composting operations. We have limited opportunities to do that now, and it's something that's laid out in the site plan for the new facility to be able to enhance that and improve resident services. We've had a lot of residents desire to have ability to drop off recyclables and start a food composting program, and a project like this enables those things to happen where we don't have the opportunity right now.
Which, when you were talking about curb appeal, the first building that was presented to your committee was, it looked like it should have been a high-tech building instead of a highway barn. So I remember looking at that and I thought, okay, this is ridiculous. There were huge windows. Who's going to wash those windows? They're up high. You're going to have, that's an expense that goes into the budget that you don't need.
Were you in those meetings?
No.
Because it sounds like you were.
No, I was in your ear. But now you have a building that is much more practical
Yes.
than what that first project looked like.
And a lot smaller, if I might add.
Smaller, but also it just makes more sense for the type of building that you ended up with.
Right.
So it's okay that they showed you the best curb appeal you could ever imagine, except it didn't make sense for a highway, department and a water and sewer department. But what you have now on paper looks so much more useful than what you started out with.
I think that's a piece, though. We really worked hard as a committee and with the project team and with DPW staff, really. I mean, DPW staff have been involved right along since we really started last summer.
Which is always important. I'm
Yep.
glad you brought that up.
Yep. I mean, it's super important. Like, those are the people that live in this building and do the work out of that building, so they know it better than any of us, right? So we've had them through that whole process. But the design that you see now truly came out of that, what are the practical items that we need, right? And then, even as far we talk about that, you talk about the tall windows, the building originally inside on the second floor had a 14-foot ceiling, right? Like, that costs more money to heat and cool, and all those windows create heating and cooling issues. So we really worked with our designers and the team really to pull all that stuff back. And then the other part of it is the durability of the building. You'll notice that, when you look at some of our, like, police station's a perfect example, right? It's a brick building, right? It doesn't have fancy siding on it or anything that's, brick will last 100 years. We know that. So that's kind of the tactic that we took with the designer that we have on board, and really brought that building to real practical, but meets every need that.
Dad, who's on your committee?
So in addition to Keith is the representative from Town Hall. We also have Beth Cassavant from the Select Board. And then we have two large members who both have experience in the industry. One is Steve Walsh, and the other is Mike Liberty. And they've been wonderful additions to the committee. They've really brought a lot to the table and helped us get to where we are now. I mean, I think we're confident in the design that we have now. We're confident that the number is what it is. at this point, and that's through the work of Keith and Beth and the whole committee and Tim and the whole project team. And, you know, I'd like to close by saying, because I know we're getting probably short on time, but I hope the voters really take in all the information that we presented. We have been as transparent as we possibly can be. We've had 27 meetings, I think now, virtually all of them televised. The information is out there. We're not hiding anything. And we think this is the best path forward for the town and for the residents.
And to delay would only end up costing us more money, which did happen with the high school when we finally got 10 years later. It did happen. So I understand that you told Mr. Walsh that he asked as many questions as I did on the police station.
That must have been
More.
on one of the,
Yeah,
possibly
he
more.
took that with pride.
Well, I actually, it was not only you, but it was Mo as well. So
Yeah.
I put you and Mo
Combination.
in the same place. Yes, yes, which is a good thing.
But those
We have
questions,
a smaller committee with more questions.
We do.
but though that's what makes your project
Yes.
solid, because the questions are asked, you've explored all the options. So, do you want to add anything? I think we covered it.
I think that's it for the project.
Okay, so let's just jump ahead now, because we will run out of time. You had I don't want to call it a celebration, you had a ceremony, a recognition of the 50-year anniversary from when Officer Lonchitis got murdered down at the Worcester City Motel. I was glad to see that did not go unnoticed, that date was important. And it's awful to think that happened here in the innocence of the 70s, wasn't it? It was in the 70s. So,
Years ago, yeah.
and now it's just so much more dangerous. I have to ask you, the Route 20 gas station, I'll call it the Route 20 and Lake Street gas station across from Market Basket. Market Basket spent so much money investing in making that intersection work for the traffic that they would bring there, including my car. And now a gas station's going to come in there and mess up the long line of traffic on Lake Street. Who can stop that? Not to stop the gas station from going in, but for someone to look and say, that's not practical for that outlet to be right there.
Well, there's a lot of scrutiny that's going on with that project at the planning board right now and with Mass DOT. A couple things are evolving with the Lake Street intersection with Mass DOT as well. We're actually taking the dedicated left-hand turn lane and allowing traffic to go straight as well, because you could only go straight through the
One lane.
the right-hand lane, so that caused
Yep.
queuing issues. So we hope that eliminates some of the congestion there and makes the flow just a lot easier for the existing. But there's the scrutiny that's going into the project right now is what traffic moves can be made into and out of the facility directly from Route 20 and then on to Lake Street. And we are trying to limit Lake Street so that there isn't conflicting movements from the gas station onto Lake Street, which will cause additional queuing issues further back Lake Street. So it's a delicate balance. I will say overall the project is a welcome investment in an area that's highly underutilized. I know it will bring its own traffic and, customers and things like that. We're just looking at it really closely to see what additional improvements would be needed.
And you don't want to negatively impact Route 20 because it's typical for that traffic to come onto the side street instead of the highway.
Right.
So it's almost like a no-win situation. Whatever you do on one is going to negatively impact the other.
It will, yeah. And one thing we know for sure is there'll be, no left-hand turns from the gas station out onto Route 20.
Oh, really?
It's just too dangerous. Too
Yeah.
many lanes to cross at that point.
Yeah.
And traffic is moving too fast for that to be safe.
Yeah. So, and you're going to change the traffic pattern of Dean Park
We are.
to protect the pedestrians, which there are so many people that walk in Dean Park now. It's really nice to see. You must have considered putting in some sort of a walking trail on the inner perimeter of the park.
Yeah, I mean, we did, but our obligations and responsibilities when it comes to that and making sure it's accessible and constructing a new trail wasn't cost effective, and something easier to do and to really get safety enhancements as soon as possible is to make that a single direction around. And
You get used to it.
yeah, there'll be multiple places where it's still two ways, on the far ends of the loop, so to speak, where you can exit the loop down by the parking lots. But we're looking out in the interest of pedestrians and giving people more space within that paved right of way or travel way.
Because the number is much larger. It just keeps multiplying, which is nice. Okay, so have you driven around town and seen the signs that are posted on public property that don't belong there?
It's an ongoing battle.
I called Parks Department to say you have a sign at the entrance of Dean Park. You have a sign, which is to me disrespecting the monument at the center of town. So someone took care of it. Those signs were gone. They no sooner took that sign out, somebody else came along and put a different sign there. So I think we have to be vigilant about keeping the signs out of there because everybody thinks it's okay. And now when you have candidates, they just put them along the side of the road and figure, it's worth it until someone comes along. And now that spring's here, you're going to start seeing the college hunks that have to be my age by now, advertising their sign painting. So anyways, can there be a bylaw or something about a fine if people put it on public property?
It already exists. Yes.
Really?
Yeah, it already exists. Yeah.
Well, I think when you have chronic, some people might do it out of ignorance, but when you have chronic violators, I think they should be called on. What are you doing to the water rates?
So we're adjusting water rates.
Down?
We are not adjusting them downward. So there's two parts of the water rate adjustment. The smaller part of the component, about 1.3% of the increase, is associated with the project that we just talked about, being able to retire the debt and provide for debt service. And the rest is 3.7% is just the annual increase in the operations. I think we're really fortunate to be able to stick within that cap because chemicals and water treatment is a really expensive business to be in, and the chemical side and the electricity side is intense, and we've been able to stay within that, midterm financial plan of not increasing it more than 5% while servicing debt, not only for the ongoing capital investments in the system, like the water mains and the meters and things like that, but also fortunate to be able to cover that debt if the facilities optimization project gets approval.
And the 300th anniversary planning committee's going to town, and that's not for 2 years?
2 more years.
2 more years. So, I mean, it's a huge undertaking for a committee to, hopefully there'll be enough people to help. And it's interesting to watch the enthusiasm that the committee has, and I think it'll be good for the town.
They have established their presence online, so to speak, with not only social media, but their own website. And they are looking to partner with businesses for donations and sponsoring events. But I think the unique approach that they're taking is that they're not trying to control what activities are going to happen. They will have responsibility for maybe one of the biggest or a few of the biggest activities itself, but they're encouraging groups within the community and businesses to be involved throughout 2027 as a full calendar year to celebrate the town's 300th anniversary and not narrowing that down to one, event or gala or something like that. So I like that. That's a unique approach.
And I thought it was pretty good that they were talking fireworks too.
Yeah.
So Green Street, the Pulte development, he threw a curveball when he changed the affordable units from 75 down to 23. What's the reaction to that from you or from the board?
Yeah, so the overall project scope is changing significantly from 300 total units down to 150 units. And all the buildings before on the original plan when there was going to be 300 were 4-story or 5-story garden style, traditional multifamily buildings. Picture Lakeway Commons or Edgemere Crossing, those type of buildings. The project has transformed into one building like that, and then 100, what will have 38 units, and then 112 townhome units that'll be in clusters of 2 and 3.
Now, you don't invite these people to come in and build this type of stuff. This is a 40B project, which is through the mandate of the state. We just have to accept this project.
Well, the original project was 40B, and the change in the project is because of what's allowed for under MBTA. So you have the benefit of reducing the total unit count from 150 or by 150 from 300 down to 150. So that will mean a lot less traffic in the area, a lot less cars.
More students.
But yeah, but it's a different mix of the number of bedrooms per unit. So it likely will bring more students into the community. It's just a different product. The result, the affordable unit count is because it'll bump to the 15% affordability requirement, which I'm really proud that we went through the process and did for MBTA, because we could have easily just said it only needs to be 10%, but we got it to a higher level, and we'll see. It's at the planning board this coming Thursday or the first Thursday in April, and they'll start the permitting process for that project.
And Senator Michael Moore put forward legislation with the Joint Committee on Public Health to ban the sale or use of packaging manufactured with PFAS. I can't even believe that we have to deal with legislation or don't have it in Shrewsbury or any of those things. Why should the company be allowed to develop it in the first place? It's a forever chemical that negatively affects people's health, whether it's a cancer-causing agent, and it causes immunosuppression, it causes birth defects, and all sorts of things, including colitis, they say. So why should a company be allowed to even develop that? I don't get it. Why isn't that being stopped? But we have to have legislation to not have it on our food packaging. I mean, I'm glad he's doing it, but something's backwards there. We only have about 2 minutes. Mountain View Cemetery. What's the latest and the greatest? We're going to be done and open for customers probably by what? The end of 2025, the beginning of 26?
Yeah.
2026.
2026 is when it will be. So you'll start to see actual construction occur. There'll be trees removed minimally because it is a park, style cemetery, and so we'll remove some trees and we'll make sure that when it's time to excavate for final burials, that we'll be able to do so without major impediments.
So, do you have programs specifically affected by the federal government cutbacks?
A couple are starting to come to fruition. One of the main ones is funding that we receive for the mental health clinician that covers the cost of that position within the police department. We don't receive a lot of direct federal funding, but if overall federal revenues to the state decline, I would be worried about our state aid, things like that, more than the direct.
Okay, so I can ask you one more thing quickly, not ask you, point out, the budget hearings, 186 million plus, which is $4 million less than FY 25?
Correct.
So how do you do all these things and bring the budget down?
Well, the main difference is the level of capital investment that we're making. We did a 2-year capital investment cycle through the town meeting last year for stormwater. So that's about half of that $4 million. And then there's a little bit less investment through CPC this spring. There's only 4 warrant articles. Last year there were 9, if I remember right. And but it's mainly those utility capital investments that are less year over year.
All right, so I can't ask you the rest of the questions. I want to thank you all for being here today, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.